Hey YouTube, Magician34. I know it's been a little while, but I brought you something good for waiting. I brought you my Theros Game Day deck, which is a standard deck. I fiddled around with a lot of things, and I thought that this really cool Boros deck, I call it Boros, other people come up with that. It's basically a Boros Aura deck, uh, was really fun and it was cool, and this deck came in second at a pretty sizable event. Like, almost everyone there was pretty competitive, so it was good. Um, First off, running 3 Soldier of the Pantheon as one of my 1-drops. This guy's real solid, and a lot of decks, especially other aggro decks, can have difficulty getting rid of this guy. And pumping this guy with auras can make him a very quick killer, especially when you drop Madcap skills on this guy. He's a real legit threat, and the life gain against other aggro decks can be helpful. Speaking of which, here's a card that I think a lot of people didn't think had any value at all. It's just a draft card, and even then, kind of a late pick kind of thing. Hopeful Eidolon, but as this deck relies heavily on ethereal armor to do some heavy hits, Hopeful Eidolon's quite good. Late game, he's not a bad top deck because you can bestow him and grant lifelink, which can help you in longer games, since aggressive decks typically have trouble in long games. While you're waiting to set up, some way to kill, like, say, Reckoner or something, this guy can definitely help you hold out. Plus, he's a 1-drop with lifelink, and this guy can actually set you up for a very quick kill on opponents who don't have a way to stop you. Eidolon plus like a couple of ethereal armors or maybe a madcap, or give him double strike with Boros Charm. This thing can easily nail out a lot of damage because remember, it is an enchantment. So that guy's pretty awesome. On to our 2-drops. We only have one 2-drop creature, but it's 4 copies of Akroan Hoplite. This guy's amazing because when he's a 1/2, but whenever he attacks, he gets a bonus for every attacking creature, including himself. So he's kind of like Goblin Piledriver. That guy really puts the hurt on early and even late game, especially with some evasion around. 3-drop, pretty crucial slot for us. We have 4 Reckoners. This guy's just kind of a duh in any Boros deck, because you can't really get color screwed out of him. He's pretty much always a safe 3-drop. You're never going to not be able to cast him, obviously, and his ability to burn makes him an excellent late game pick. And early game, he puts the pressure on too. Another one who's great to pump up, and of course you can target him also, Fabled Hero. He comes with double strike, and he only starts as a 2/2, but you target him with basically anything, and he's an instantaneous powerhouse. He draws a lot of kill spells, but hey, that means the thing you've already pumped up before keeps going through unchecked. I did run 2 copies of Auramancer. Obviously, it's not the 2/2 for 3 that's the allure. It's the fact that you can bring back an enchantment, and you have quite a few cards that are enchantments in this deck. So she can be very utilitarian. She can bring back Hopeful Eidolon if you need a creature. She can get back Ethereal Armors to help stacking up bonuses. Just all kinds of stuff. She's pretty awesome. I definitely wouldn't run more than 2, but she's kind of nice, especially mid to late game. Ran 1 copy of Tajik. I was just kind of fiddling with him. He wasn't bad, but he just wasn't extraordinary. I'd probably take him out if I had it to do over again. But that said, he wasn't too bad, and he had his fun moments. He's a 2/2 and he's indestructible, which is the nice bonus. So he helps in those slightly longer games. And his battalion turns him into a 7/7, which is indestructible, which is of course obviously a lot more threatening. And anything on top of him, like say Hopeful Eidolon, can get really, really fun. We're running 2 copies of Heliod, God of the Sun. This guy proved to be a lot better than I thought he'd be, actually. This guy gives you some significant longevity, and the Vigilance means that things with Ethereal Armor are a heck of a lot more threatening. So, quite good, and of course if Reckoner gets on the field, it's not too hard to get this guy's Devotion up. So, he's pretty awesome. And speaking of enchantments that can turn into creatures, we're running 3 copies of Perforos. I gotta say, he's a really cool idea, but this may just not be the deck for him. I'd probably drop from 3 to 1 or even 0 probably in the future. He wasn't bad because he's still an indestructible enchantment, and he does have an ability where he can pump stuff, but it just never came into play too much. He's a little too slow. But yeah, I still made second running Perforos, so he's obviously not all bad. That's the creature lineup. We're only running 2 Planeswalkers, and it's 2 copies of Chandra. Elspeth is at a 6-drop. She's just, you're not going to run her, obviously. Chandra is good for dropping at 4 because she can pick blockers out of your way with her first ability and whatnot, and she can sometimes draw fire away from you if you're in a little bit of a bind against aggressive opponents and whatnot. Her other 2 abilities are a lot less useful, actually, in this deck, but also her ability just to ping your opponent. She's just one more method of burn. She's solid at 4. It's kind of a duck card, really. We're running 3 copies of Boros Charm. This card is so solid. Don't really need to sing the praises. It burns your opponent for 4 to finish the job, grants double strike in a deck where things are already hard to block, and people will often not block and forget that you can give double strike so easily, and you can also give all your permanents indestructible for the turn, which is nice when people try to use their removal on you, etc., etc. Just good stuff. Star card of the deck, we're running 4 copies of Ethereal Armor. It gives +1/+1 and First Strike. And that's 1/1 for every enchantment. So it's, it itself is an enchantment, so it's always going to at least give you a +1/+1 First Strike, but obviously it pumps a lot more. And with the creatures in this deck at their speed, it gets threatening real fast. You get how it works, and it's real cheap, so you can play it early. Really good in those early game trades. Running 3 copies of Madcap Skills. You're pretty much your only source of evasion. Really monstrous, obviously. The +3 in early game, it's virtually makes it unblockable, which is awesome. It's a red card that says you're unblockable for 2 mana. It's awesome. So that's the deck, just Fast and Furious Boros, just with a really weird perspective. I had a little trouble with Esper. It was the only matchup that I had real trouble with, and the only reason I lost in the final match, top 2, was because I played against a red deck and I kept kind of a questionable hand. Because I didn't want to mulligan down to 6. I had 2 planes, and I just couldn't get the red sources in time, and he got a really good hand, and so he just mauled me. And, that's the game. Sometimes you make judgment calls, and it's not always right. You just got to play the statistics. Land-wise, speaking of which, we're running 4 Sacred Foundry, because, well, duh. Don't be afraid to shock yourself when you need it. 3 copies of Temple of Triumph. I think 4 would have been a little much, but I like the ability to scry. If you don't have the 1-drop, then on turn 1, obviously this is your land of choice. It just helps your consistency stay up. It's scry, which is always wonderful, and at the same time it gives you mana, obviously. Color fixes. I ran 1 copy of Nykthos, just because, when you get rolling, it can make you some extra mana. I thought Reckoner might be fun with this. Really, honestly, I would turn it into a mountain if I had to do over. I almost never drew it, so it didn't even really factor in too much. But it was a cool idea. You can still run it. It's not too bad. And then we got 9 planes, because a lot of our early game permanents and our crucial cards are white, or at least, need the white a little bit more. And then I'm running 6 mountains, was my land count. And that's it for the main board. And the side deck I ended up having to build really quickly, so I had to guess at it a little bit. But mainly due to Esper, I'm running 4 Pithing Needles, because Esper has very few win conditions, and obviously a well-placed Pithing Needle just completely shuts down any Planeswalker. It also shuts Aetherling pretty much down, just turns him into a vanilla, a very overcosted vanilla. So these are awesome, you just have to watch out for Detention Sphere. But other than that, it's a devastating card against them, especially since it's a 1-drop, so you can play it before they have any hope of countering it or anything. For more aggro opponents, we got Blind Obedience, because it's a nice cheap drop that's easy to play on your curve. The Extort really helps you win the damage race, and obviously there's stuff coming into play tapped to help stop things with haste, like, well, yeah, pretty much everything. I'm trying to think. The 2-drop thing that's a 2/2, and when they play stuff out of the grave, it shocks you. Yeah, that thing, which I've embarrassingly forgotten the name of. 1 copy of Fiend Slayer Paladin, because I didn't own more, but obviously this guy can be really good against the mono-red deck, for all the obvious reasons. I tacked a couple of copies of Sphere of Safety, because against mid-range and whatnot, this card's just devastating. Celestia really hates the idea of this card. It is a 5-drop, but it's not too hard to cast, and they have to pay, to attack with each creature, they have to pay 1 for every enchantment you've got, so it's really painful for them. And you can easily handle 1 to 2 creatures a turn. Speaking of which, I also tried Assemble the Legion. This can also be good against Esper, because it just gives you a progressively bigger and bigger horde, and it's another enchantment, of course, to help power up your stuff. And last but not least, 3 Skullcracks. This is for anybody who's running sort of casual life game. Like I say, I built my side deck really quickly, but I thought this could also be good against Sphinx's Revelation. Mainly, though, that matchup is one you usually win against control decks, period, with aggro. You just bowl them over, plain and simple. So, anyway, that was the deck. Like I said, I went to top 2, not too bad, and I think had it played out a little differently luck-wise, I could easily have won. So yeah, good deck. It's really fun. You should try it. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool gaming content.